Hi there, and welcome to another episode here on Bustthenet. Yes, these are the Gamechanger saves, where I delve into your save and give you my point of view. And it's different. I love these saves because it's different because everybody has a different take on the game. Some guys send me in their saves and they've got 10 matches to go and they need to fight relegation. Other players have got different aspects of the game. I've recently seen one about nothing but transfer strategies, and it's cool because these shows definitely give you a different twist, and I am enjoying these saves, and I'm hoping that more and more first team members from my Discord channel keep sending these in because these are quite fun to do. And on this save, we've got a newly promoted team managed by Ten Wolf, and he is managing Charlton, which has achieved back-to-back promotions. They're in the Premiership, and this will be, if I'm not mistaken, their first season in the Premiership. Um, they've they've done okay, I guess, because this team, this is the season thus far. Sorry, this is the season thus far. They just started the season. Last season, they managed to stay above water. I keep their heads above water, and they didn't drop back down. If you look at the club, they've done consistently well since it's taken over. They managed to get promoted. They've been in the Premiership, and they've done okay. They've done pretty well in the Premiership, and the challenge right now he faces is he wants to look at the youth in his setup. Now, this is a fairly interesting approach. Uh, I, for one, thoroughly believe in using your youth. However, there is going to be a balance, especially if you're a newly promoted side. If you're a newly promoted side, focusing too much on youth can have a detrimental effect. There are two things that can happen. The first thing that happens is you end up losing the players. Let's just face it. They're young. Your club has got a low reputation. There'll be other clubs out there hawking your players. All they need to do is unsettle a player. The player that you've invested a lot of time and energy in gets snapped up by another club. You can't keep hold of him, and that's it. He's gone for what, 7 million, 8 million, and it pisses you off, and then you got to start all over again. It can be very, very demoralizing, and that's the first thing that we have to consider. So you're gonna have to strike a balance between developing your players and building the reputation of your club at the same time. You got to do both to get both hand in hand, and that will require you to raise the profile of your club. There are two ways you can do this. The first way is, of course, winning competitions, and sometimes that's not really easy. The second way is by signing free signings who have a reputation. So players with recent ex-internationals that have recently been released by clubs. I remember West Brom save a few years ago. Some of my other saves, I went out there and I signed players like Barkley, Lacazette. These were all available on a free, and I was in my second season in the Premiership, and by signing these players, the profile of the players is already very good. I sign them on a free, immediately their value goes up, and this is what you need to look at: the player value itself. So at the moment, like, let's look at your goalkeeper. He's valued at 9.25. Now, out there, you might get a free signing who's available on the free. You sign him, he comes, joins your club, and automatically that value could go to 15 to 20 million. That's what happened to me with players like Barkley and Lacazette. Overnight, they add value. So the whole value of your club goes up. So players become they bring up the reputation of the club. Now, when they bring up the reputation of the club, this has two effects. One, you are able to track youth prospects as well. Two, your reputation of the club goes up. Sometimes your average players may not want to leave anymore, so then you start getting a bit of stability going in your club. So this is something I recommend. So whenever you're out in the transfer market, have a short list. Be on the lookout And this is pretty easy to do. All you got to do is here on this filter. I mean, I wish I could drag this filter around. Uh, just add a condition, and the condition should be the value. The value should be 0. So all you do, this is how you will end up, looking at players who are available on the free. And once these players are available, it it's gonna be a steal, and adding them to your pot is gonna be fantastic. So this is something that you need to be looking at, and I typically do this every single season, especially if I'm a newly promoted club. I will be on the hunt for these kind of players. The second thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your squad is of a balanced size. First few seasons is all about keeping those costs low. So you're looking at signing players between 3 to 5 million pounds. That's reasonably speaking, because you're gonna have to do things like balancing this. You're currently spending £805,000 per week, and you're committed spending £850,000 per week. So you've got quite a gap here. And if you make a budget adjustment and you bring this down, there are two things that are going to happen. This doesn't give you a lot of latitude. Why? Because you still need this money for your scouting budget. So if you look at scouting budget, you got 720. You only got 445,000 remaining. You're gonna run out of money very soon. So you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have to balance this very carefully. So make sure that your finances don't go out of control, because in the early stages you're gonna have to be looking at. If you want to develop your youth, you're going to have to be very careful with your budget. And this is why it's very important to keep track of your finances. Now, if you're going to be a manager, if you want to be a club that's developing inbred talent, then you're looking at continually investing in your facilities, in your coaches, and the costs go up. Because the expenditure for these kind of things is good. It's not going to be... It's considerable. Your youth setup, your training, all that will end up being close to 5 million by the time you're done. Okay, the whole season. Last season you only 2.36. So there's still if I go to the board right now and I talk about asking for improvements, they'll finish this, but you will find that there's more that they can do. As you can see here, the training facilities can be improved. They can improve the youth facilities. They can improve the youth recruitment over here. These are all things that you will end up having to do, and you can't do them in one go, because if you do them in one go, you're financially you're gonna be hamstrung, and you're gonna be you don't get the balance right. So, and you have to remember another thing: you can't play all of them. You're targeting something like 4 or 5 players. So be realistic. Look for players. Fit them into a system that your majority of players can play. Now, last season, if I looked at your run, you had a pretty scary end of the season where you lost quite a number of games. You lost to United, you lost to Liverpool, lost to Spurs, Arsenal, Watford, Middlesbrough, Newcastle. All right, this is not good. So you're gonna have to start planning a strategy where your team does well in the long haul. Here, Charlton are still favourites to go down. Yes, having youth players as a long-term strategy is good, but in the near term, you absolutely need to find players that you can depend on. So here we have a whole set of players. You got Max Blow. Let's look at your players and go through your players. So you've got a fairly young squad, which is in line with your general strategy. But you're going to have a lot of challenges going forward, because you're going to have to look at things like, are these players suitable enough to survive in the Premiership? And if that's your only goal, then fine. But if you want to do really well, then you got to look at other things as well. Here, let's take a look at one of your first team players, Marco Blanco. Now, in the Premiership, he's a liability, because his jumping range is only 13. He's young, so you're dropping him into the deep end, and you're expecting him. You're putting a lot of pressure, and he's already a first team member. That is probably down to the fact that he's Costa Rican, he's an international, he's 19 years old. So in order for you to bring him in, the contract had to be attractive enough to give him a permit. So this is the first player. Then you've got another player, Harry Suta, who's great in the air, and he complements the other player. His only downside for this player is his ability to play for 90 minutes without making mistakes. Now, he has got average concentration. His technique is not that fantastic, so I'll be very careful about using him, especially in matches where you are playing end-to-end football at 100 miles per hour. If that is the case, he's going to run out of stamina, and his low technique is going to see him getting cuts. So we've got two players. Then we've got one of your senior players, Jamal Lascelles. Now he is definitely a starter compared to the rest of the players, but his jumping rate is pretty low. So Harry Suta and Jamal Lascelles will be starting most of your teams. You got to be very careful as well over time, because when you have a player who's 19 years old and he's also a first team player, he's gonna have to be playing at least 60% of the games. So otherwise, he's going to become very unhappy. Then you've listed Patrick Bauer. Now he's 30 years old with low bravery. However, you want to think about you're probably trying to keep your budget, your wages down as well, which is the reason why you're releasing some of your players. But here, Mario Blanco will be playing something like 15 games this season. So you set that up straight away. You know he's going to be playing 15 games. That's the target he has to reach in order for him to develop. And for him as well, if I were to start looking at him in terms of training and development, I'm looking at your training. You've focused on ball playing defender for him, which is a lot of attributes, right? So, and here I would go and see, okay, fine, that is okay. I do that quite a lot myself. If he's just a central defender, then we don't have to worry about it. We can focus on the core functions of a central defender and get him to work on those, because this is where you do focus development on young players, and this is something I'm a big fan of, because we focus on the key elements of being a very good central defender, and this hits all the spots perfectly. His intensity should be high. As long as you see the individual training load is medium, it's fine. So Mario Blanco, you should change it to a central defender with the intensity level of heavy. Now, with medium, I can still work on something like tackling. I mean, double lows is tackling. And now it's heavy. That's it. Mario Blanco plays 15 games a season. He's got a very heavy training workload, but it'll be fine for him. So we just manage his development. So you do that with quite a few of your players. You focus on things that are gonna give them adequate development. Now here you've got to think about, once you make him a first team player, you can't really tutor him anymore, and he's only fairly loyal. It would have been good if we could tutor him. So generally players with who are in the under 23s, and if you're thinking of bringing them into the first team, what I would do is a very simple way of doing this, and it's very, very fast. Okay, so what you do is you go through your players, and then here we have a 19-year-old player who's basically got bags of potential, but he's nowhere near playing to his best, and you put him out on loan. This is going to be interesting. Where is he playing? Okay, he's playing in Swindon, and Swindon currently are playing the championship. That's fine. Now he is away. He's 19 years old. Make sure he plays a lot of games, and if I were you, I would be playing him in my first team, as if that was your plan. But if once you release players, you release that Suta, the 30-year-old player that you want to let go, he has to start playing. Now the problem with his attributes is, again, his intelligence is not very good. Anticipation, bravery, composure, these hallmarks of intelligence, but he can't read a game very well. So he needs a lot of playing time, right? Now when he does come back, to your team, what you want to do is you want to focus his training as well. This is one player who you have to give focus training to, and what I will do with Hamdoun is to work on his positioning and his tackling, and get him to work on those areas. Again, focus on being a central defender before you start playing him as a ball-playing defender. Get some core attributes working together and you'll be fine. So this is what you need to start focusing on. You need to focus, and the only real player I would really go and say, okay, fine, I'm bringing him back, I'm going to use him, is Abdulaziz Hamdoun. What about the rest? Like, okay, honestly, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, I probably wouldn't keep them. I'm really quick with stars. Nowadays, I don't really spend a lot of time hoping that they'll become good, because honestly, if at the age of 22 years old, If his acceleration is still 5, you will see that this guy is not, he's surplus to your requirements. I mean, this is literally true. You can't use him anymore. He's useless. Charlie Moore, Joel, whatever your name is. Okay. All right. What about him? A player like this, he's got very average ratings, but his jumping range is 16. In my book, he still might have a part to play in your team. He can't play as a fullback, but he can certainly come in as a centre back, central defender. So make sure he keeps going on loan. And championship sides are good, gets a lot of playing time, and if he does develop over time, then he's not too bad. However, he has one problem. He's for a player who's got poor technique, poor first touch, he tries to play his way out of trouble. It's a recipe for disaster. So Joel Latib would do whatever your name is, okay, try and get him to unlearn this player trait. So you don't want technical player traits on players who have poor technique. Okay, then we got Brian Ovidio. Players like this, he's gone. Sell him if you can, get rid of him if you can. These are just adding to your costs. Miles Kenlock, these players probably all came with you from getting promoted. Now, these are all survivors, and honestly, I would play them in my first team just to give the first team some legs, right? Now, if I'm looking at your other fullbacks in your team, you've got him on an international duty, Frank. If I were to compare both of them right now, your two left backs, Miles Kenlock, we'll move him into the senior squad, and we'll take a look at him with he's not too bad. You got Frank Schoft here, and you got Lewis Page. He is very fast. Technically, he's average. Defensively, he's not that fantastic. His positioning is only 11. His work rate is 12. Then we've got another player, Lewis Page. Very average. Nothing to shout about. Again, positioning is only 13. Very average attributes. I rather play Frank Shad more often than I would play Lewis Page. And then we've got Miles Kenlock. Right? Miles Kenlock, I would play him in a heartbeat. See, that's the difference between you and me. I will play him because he's a starting player, but you've not registered him, or he's wanted. You've listed him, and I would start playing this guy a lot more because he has the capacity of giving you a lot of stability. Plus, he is reasonably fast, and he's got reasonable positioning, and he gives you options. And this frees you up, so you don't have to worry about Frank Shaft. You can develop him; he'll become a very good player in the long run. But you have the option, so you can play 15 games with one player, Frank Shaft, and then you play Miles Kenlock most of the time. So these are things that you want to be looking at doing. These are all your defenders on your left. These are basically your fullbacks, I guess. Yeah, they are. You don't really have a lot of fullbacks on the right. So here we have another fullback on the right. Very average. Again, positioning is only 12. Doesn't really get up the pitch. So you're going to be looking at him playing a more support role instead of an attack role. He's got bags of potential as well. So you don't want to short circuit their development by, The thing here about developing players is this. They need good ratings in games. This Colombian is definitely a starter. Okay, he's got better attributes than Denis Bobovic, which means that you don't need anybody else in your team. Chris Soli, this guy, he won't even get a chance to play because these two players can do the job. So when you're looking at attributes, you're looking at a range of attributes. But you start first asking that simple question: can they defend? Positioning. Okay, can they get forward off the ball? Okay, now when they get forward, how do they do with the ball? Balance, first touch, dribbling. Can they pass the ball? Passing. All right, then you go slowly through to the paces. What is Denis Babovic's weakness? He might not go in for the challenge because his bravery is only 9. And then we've got Alex Bernal. His bravery is a lot better. He's at 13. He's got a bit more bite in him, so he's not too bad. So we can use him. Going forward, he doesn't really deliver the cross, but we can definitely expect him to at least hold on to the ball. Okay, this tells us a lot about the players. So this is what you do with all your players. You go through them, and then you find the balance for your players before you decide how you're going to develop. And then you pick 5 players. Now, you can't pick a whole bunch of them, but you need to have enough. You need to have some mix of seniority and youth. You can go for a complete youth challenge. There's nothing wrong with that. But being a newly promoted side, you want to have some stability as well. You don't want to always be fighting for relegation, because let's just put it this way: if your match ratings are always going to be low, like you lose a lot of games, then it has a knock-on effect on their development. So what you want to do is you want to have decent results with the players you're fielding, and you don't want to be losing too many games. If you go on a massive losing streak, this is a knock-on effect on their development, and then their match ratings drop, and then the player ratings drop, and the player ratings drop, then the bonus towards training development gets smaller, and then the attributes, instead of maybe having 20 attributes to distribute, now they only have 5. So these are all things that you have to be concerned about when you are doing this. All right, so now we've done this, we've gone through, and always be mindful of your scouting, right? So you want to you don't want to have too many players that you can't keep track of. So pick 5 players in your team, and these are the 5 that you are going to depend on. So you're going to have a spine of solid players that you always rely on, and then you're going to have these 4 to 5 players that you're going to be looking at giving them 15 games a season. Yeah, once you give, or do you need to play them for an entire match? No, 45 minutes. Okay, a player will develop the amount of time he plays. There is a minimum amount of time. The minimum amount of time is the minimum amount of time he needs to get a player rating for. Now, should he play for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, or 45 minutes? The longer he plays, the better it is for his development. Though there is a minimum, and I believe that it is about 45 minutes, one half. Playing for a half if you can, that's the best, because that is solid enough. And you can, if he plays for 50 minutes, he still gets something, but the ratings are usually too low. Like you probably see 6.6, 6.7. I usually aim for ratings of at least 7 for my youth players. Then I know that the bonus that they get from that is a lot higher. Okay, time for us to take a look at your tactic. All right, so okay, I've never seen your tactic before, and this is the first I'm seeing. We've got a few. I see my own tactic here called Knight's Gate. This does not look like Knight's Gate. This looks like my Liverpool tactic that I'm using. Yeah, this looks like the Liverpool system that I'm using. Yeah, this is 4-3-1-2 asymmetric. It can work with a lot of teams. So we're going to try and set up 2 kinds of tactics for your team. Now, depending on the players that you have and how you've played, and I've seen some of your matches. Let's look at your Newcastle game. What did you use for this game? What tactics did you use for this game? You used a 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1 DM wide. Use this. Okay, I would, if I'm like looking at trying to survive in the Premiership for a reasonable period of time, I will be looking at something a bit more. I'm a big fan of playing tactics where I have a lot of players defending. So I could even use the 4-2, the Portuguese 4-3-3, which is 2 DMs, 1 central midfielder, and 3. Or ideally, I want to have 3 midfielders. That's it. Give me strength in midfield and, hit teams on the counter. For Charlton's tactic, they've come up with a simple strategy. There's a close down much more for the guys in front and side midfielders over here. These guys have all been told to close down much more, tackle harder. He's been told to move into channels, tackle harder, mark tighter. So this is the same for all 3 of these players. The side midfielders have been told to close down more and dribble less. The 2 side wing backs have been told to close down much less, sit narrower. This guy's been told to sit narrower and run wide with the ball when we have possession of the ball. The goalkeeper has been told to distribute the centre backs and take short kicks. And this is how we set up for the match against Liverpool. Because Liverpool are going to be much tougher opposition, we also did choose to remove Rome from positions in this setup, control structure, play out the defense with crosses, use offside trap, and prevent short goalkeeper distribution with the shouts that we started with in the game. Part of the strategy of the high block is, of course, to close down much more in the opposition half. We did find ourselves under some pressure in the first half, forcing us to change our role slightly on the right flank to compensate. The change proved to be significant as the ball-winning midfielder on the right flank helped us keep possession down that side of the pitch. And you have a pretty talented player who can play there. We managed to unlock Liverpool, keeping possession very well on the left flank and then hurling the ball over to the right, setting up a nice little goal to give us the lead before the end of the first half. The goal of this system is really simple. When we do have possession, we want to try and keep it on the left flank with so many players being so close together. It makes it really hard for us to lose the ball, dragging the opposition out of position and unlocking another side of the pitch for us to score goals, and that's exactly how we scored the second goal. Throughout this game, I never felt any pressure. Even when Liverpool pulled one goal back, we still felt very much in control. We had the better chances in this game, and I was pretty happy with how we controlled possession as well. Our second game, however, turned out to be a classic do not do what I do in games example. I went into this game, made some fundamental mistakes, including player selection, as I fielded two players to central defender positions, and neither one of them had jumping reach greater than 13. I obviously suffer from some short-term memory problems because earlier in the show I did advise you not to use these two players together. However, I didn't take the same advice. I opted to use them together, and we conceded 2 goals from corners. So moral of the story, if you have players who got jumping reach of 18 and 17, please use them in your games because you do not want to do what I did in this game. Arsenal, in spite of scoring 2 goals from set pieces, they added one more from the penalty spot, but we never really came back in this game. It was just a classic mistake from me. Overall, though, you have the players to do pretty okay in the Premier League. You just have to remember that you have to balance player selection for you to get anything out of your next season. It's good to have young players in your team, but you need to balance results with development as well. Overall, though, the tactic doesn't require much tweaking. I've offered a alternative, a slight change to the tactic in the show, and I hope you find it useful. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Game Changer. If you have any questions, please look me up on Twitter at Bustthenet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank all my patrons for their continued support of this channel. You make these kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. You guys take care, have a good one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.